Thank you all for coming out and joining us this afternoon. Are we good? Technical? Try that again. Thank you all for coming out and joining us this afternoon. I am not going to comment on the specific charges against Officer Jenny Jenkins. I think they've been laid out pretty clearly in the criminal complaint and in the press release, which you all have. I will say that we've had great cooperation with the Attorney General's office dating all the way back until last year, and that the City of Harrisburg also conducted its own internal investigation, and our internal investigation supports the Attorney General's findings. I will comment briefly, before handing it over to the Chief, on the culture in Harrisburg which allowed this to happen, and which we are working very hard, even to this moment, to change. Essentially what happened here is that you had an individual officer that was given special treatment because of her connections, perceived and otherwise, to the community and to others. She wasn't given the proper supervision. And that lack of supervision, coupled with special treatment, led to a poor environment, a lack of accountability, and to low morale within the police department and within the city at large. What's important to note is that those responsible for not giving that supervision and for giving that special treatment are no longer employed here with us in the Harrisburg Police Department. And those that said enough is enough stood up and said, we need an investigation here and we need to change the way we're doing things in Harrisburg. Indeed, have been promoted, have risen to the new leadership, and in the person of Chief Carter is now running the Harrisburg Police Department. And what I want to emphasize is that we have the right leader at the helm here in Harrisburg. We're doing things differently. We are now promoting and indeed hiring all of our officers based entirely on merit. And we're making sure that on a daily basis they get the proper feedback from their supervisors, from the captains that are here with us, not only on what they're doing right, but more importantly, sometimes on what they could be doing better. And that continuous feedback loop that is essential to having accountability is part of the changes that have been instituted by Chief Carter and part of our commitment to real community policing that will make Harrisburg safer and help make sure that we have accountability for the public. It's not just the police department. When we took office 6 months ago, there were a lot of issues in city government that really needed reforming. And we've been working very hard to make sure that on a department-by-department basis, we have the proper oversight for our budgets, we have real and meaningful contract compliance, that we have proper grant administration, proper cash handling across all departments. And these types of procedural changes are all part of the work of good governance and making Harrisburg more accountable. They don't often make the headlines, but over the past 6 months, that's what we've been doing in City Hall, making sure that we are laying the foundation for a strong and accountable city that does things differently, that assures that we have real accountability, and makes absolute sure that we won't have situations like what happened here with Officer Jenkins arise again. With that, I want to turn things over to Chief Carter to talk a little bit more about the specifics and some of the changes that we've implemented in the police department, and then we'll be happy to take your questions. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, I regret to confirm that Officer Jenny Jenkins has been charged with several misdemeanors and a felony counts related to her work as a Harrisburg police officer. Our thoughts are with Officer Jenkins. She's still a Harrisburg City police officer, and she has kids, and so our hearts also go out to Officer Jenkins' family. Officer Jenkins has been charged, but she has not been convicted of a crime yet. So I think that we should all be mindful of that fact. The charges against Officer Jenkins involved her tenure with the department for a 2-year period from 2011 to 2013. She is charged with 4 counts of theft by unlawful taking or disposition and 1 count of theft by deception. Officer Jenkins is accused of paying herself out of charitable donations and grants to the Harrisburg Police Athletic League, HPAL. The charges are serious and represent a breach of trust. They do a serious disservice to the brave men and women who are fighting to keep our streets safe and protect our city of Harrisburg. These issues involving Officer Jenkins came to light after I took over as interim chief of police in August of last year. I noticed irregularities in grant allocations, and after conferring with Captain Oates and Captain Cleary, we decided that it was enough probable cause to launch our own internal investigation, which resulted in the charges that are filed today. The investigation was conducted by the Attorney General's office, and an internal investigation was also conducted by the city police. Our findings supports the Attorney General's office. The investigation began August the 8th of 2013 and concluded with today's announcement. Officer Jenkins began her work as an officer with the Harrisburg Police Department in August of 2005. She began work with HPAL in 2011. She served as president of HPAL since August of 2011 and continued working as a full-time police officer. It should be emphasized that Officer Jenkins was placed on administrative leave once the investigation began. As a result of this case, we have taken steps to significantly improve supervision within the police department to ensure responsibility and accountability. This is a new administration with new leadership in the police department and throughout the whole city. No longer will police officers be put in charge of HPAL. All officers will participate in HPAL on a voluntary basis and will not receive payment. We are instituting closer scrutiny of timesheets being turned in and allocations of grant funding. My 2 captains, Captain Colin Cleary and Captain Moody, we meet with our patrol supervisors regularly. We lay out the steps on the directions that we want the city to move. They meet with the supervisors and with the officers. We're out on night shift, checking and double checking on our officers to make sure that the citizens of this city is getting the best service that we can possibly offer. We are not up here today to criticize Officer Jenkins. We are only saying that what happened will no longer happen again in this city. Officer Jenkins, I take my hat off to her. She had a vision of restarting HPAL, and she did a commendable job. But however, the supervision was laxed, and once that happened, then other things happened. As I said earlier, we take our hats off to her, and we wish her the best. She is suspended with pay right now. Once the case is bound over to Dauphin County Court, she will be, she's on administrative leave right now with pay. Once the case is bound over to Dauphin County Court, she will be suspended without pay. So that's all I have to offer right now. Any questions? Starting from my right.
Since Jenkins was working outside the scope of her job duties and hours, was she entitled some sort of compensation? That's my first question.
As far as I can recall, according to the bylaws, you were not supposed to be compensated. It is all a voluntary basis.
And she knew that. That was clear to her.
I can't speak for her mindset,
Okay.
right? But it was very clear in the bylaws of HPAL.
So then that brings me to another question. Mayor, you mentioned that she received special treatment. Can you elaborate on that then? I wasn't really clear about special treatment. Was she allowed to, somebody allowed her to get paid, or what do you mean by that?
I wanted to reflect on what we could have done better as a city and as a department and what we're trying to do differently now. And what I tried to indicate was she wasn't given the proper supervision and oversight of her daily job and her daily duties that we are now making sure that we do for all officers within the Harrisburg Police Force. Had there been the proper supervision, this wouldn't have happened. And we bear some of the responsibility for that. Yep.
Mayor or Chief Carter, since you were in the police department last year, I mean, what role did Chief Ritter and Captain Massey play in the supervision of Jenny Jenkins?
I can answer that. We don't want to talk about specific individuals. That could go to the heart of the case. She's presumed innocent until proven guilty. I was taking a look at, from a grand perspective of the city, which is that we needed to have greater accountability, greater supervision, and greater oversight of all of our officers. So we won't talk specifically about this particular case, but we will talk about how we have implemented that type of change currently. And maybe the chief could talk about some of the things that we're doing to make sure that everyone is properly supervised.
Yes. When it comes to HPAL, all police officers involved in HPAL will do so on a voluntary basis. We will not be paid for anything that we do with HPAL. When I was growing up, we had a PAL, and the people there volunteered, so we were volunteer too. My captains, they communicate with our supervisors regularly. They know what's going on out there. We have promotions, and promotions are done by merit. There is no more favoritism or no more perception of favoritism in this agency. We look at how hard you work and what you're doing. The best compliment that I can give this police agency is the lack of presence, and you still have a calm and collective city without police. And that's what we're working for. That's what we talk about every day, and that's our goal.
Chief, you mentioned that no police officers are going to be in leadership positions at PAL. Who is going to be responsible for looking at PAL and making sure police officers aren't taking advantage of PAL?
PAL has new leadership. We have a new president. I am still on the PAL board. Everything that is done will be voted on by the board. We have different safety measures there. The police are anxious. They're excited to get back into PAL. They sort of took a step back until the investigation was over with. Now, since the investigation is now over with, but they understand, what Officer Jenkins is like faced with, they have a better understanding, and they're going to be helping out with PAL.
But if this happens again, who is responsible?
This will not happen anymore, sir.
Who's in charge of PAL now? Who's the president?
Steve Gunther. Steve Gunther, he's in charge of HPAL.
Yeah, but what is, does he have another title aside from that? Is he working for the city or anything?
No, he is not affiliated with the city in any way.
Was Jenkins appointed as president by the board of PAL? Is that a board decision?
I believe so, yes.
And Can you just go into a little more detail? You said this came to light because you saw discrepancies. Were you comparing timesheets she submitted? What were you looking at exactly? The lawyers in here.
Yeah, we really can't talk about the specifics of the investigation.
Okay.
That, again, Ms. Jenkins is innocent until proven guilty. The Attorney General's office has charged her based on the findings, but we don't want to prejudice the case in either direction. So the specifics we can't talk about.
What is the department doing or the city doing to maybe look at other discrepancies that may have come forward under the department during that time frame? Maybe not PAL per se, but if that culture of special treatment existed, do you fear that other discrepancies or misuse of department funds may have taken place?
We do not have any knowledge about that right now. You know, this came to light because we were doing our due diligence and we discovered this fact.
Do you believe there should maybe be an audit of the police department?
We're thinking about doing that.
Is there, is it department policy that officers are not suspended without pay until they actually go to, it actually is bounded over to Dauphin County Court?
Yes.
Okay. Is that negotiated between the union and the city?
Yes.
So she's been suspended with pay since October last year or August when you discovered it?
October.
October. Are you able to say how her salary?
Administratively, she was put up administratively. And what she still is, as of this year point, she would be, well, she's suspended with pay right now since she was charged. And if the case is bound over to Dauphin County Court, then she'll be suspended without pay.
What's the difference between administrative leave and suspended with pay?
Administrative leave is the privilege of the chief because investigations going on. Suspended with pay is because you're being charged with a crime.
Do you believe this taints the perception in the community of police officers?
No, I don't, because, you know, what the community wants to see is that they want to see action and, you know, they want to see the police take action against one of their own. It's unfortunate. This is not a good feeling for anyone up here, but what is necessary is to do the right thing because we have the public's interest at heart. And this is all about the public. This is all about kids. This is all about doing the right thing, and we are doing the right thing.
Do you know about how many officers are currently mentors with the PAL program, volunteering?
I don't have those numbers.
Okay.
I don't know.
And do you know, can you just confirm the cases, there were 2 prior cases of Officer Jenkins having lost possession of a firearm? Do you have the dates that happened or confirm that?
Again, you know, that was mentioned back when it happened. I'm not going to say anything that is going to prejudice Officer Jenkins or belittle Officer Jenkins. You know, we feel bad enough as it is being up here. I'm sure that if, you know, you want that information, it's on public record. I'm not going to stand up here and bring up that fact.
Do you have an idea of her salary, Jenkins' salary?
It's between 62 and 64,000 a year. Any more questions?
Chief, is Ed Marcel still connected with the PAL program?
Yes, he is.
Is she in custody or is there arrangements to surrender bail or bond?
That's an arrangement that was worked out with her attorney, the AG's office. I don't know the situation right now.
How long does it usually take between where we are now and the bonding over part of Dauphin County that you mentioned that would be unpaid?
I'm not sure. That's up to the court system. I know that DJ Postelli, he does not want to hear the case. It's understandable, so they have to find a new venue for the case. After they do that there, then if her lawyer is ready to present the case, then we'll have the case, and if it's bound over, then she'll be suspended without pay. So it could be a matter of 2 weeks or 2 months. I'm not sure. Okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you all for coming.